Okay, my lovely. So you are now on the subject of the small accessory on the online course. And as you can see, we have lots of tails. In this video, I am going to show you how to join your squares using the crochet on the go method. In this case, we will be working into each individual stitch to create this shape. It's much easier when you start your single rows, but when you come to put them together, it can be quite complex. So we're going to kind of tackle this area because you'll be using both techniques. But if I show you the complex and how it works, it will be much easier for you to follow when bringing them together. So there are a couple of things that I am going to do. Like I say, I'm going to show you how to do the crochet on the go. I'm going to give you the idea for the pocket so you can create pocket designs. So again, you can create some smaller squares that are more decorative, and in that case you can then put your phone in your scarf, or bits and bobs. Even hold it as pockets, so if you haven't got a coat with pockets, your scarf then becomes your pocket or your kind of bag. And obviously, given the fact that at the moment actually creating this design, it is really warm outside, you probably won't be wearing a scarf, but you can make it for autumn. So if you're doing this in autumn, ignore what I've just said. So there we go. And then I'm going to show you as well how to weave in those ends to make sure that you know how to do it correctly, or at least in a nice, neat, efficient way, so that you can then your tails won't be coming out. So we'll use a method where we don't just go in one direction, we kind of zigzag, and that way it gives a bit of pull. The only difference you're going to find difficult is when you have granny squares, gaps, because it's much harder to find the more there's only straight lines, so we kind of have to work between and around. But we'll get to that in a second. So far, I've only done 2 rows, and I'm kind of going for an oddment of shapes. There will be a picture of this when it's finished for you to look at, and I will write down this pattern, but you can follow us in YouTube. So at the moment, you can see that I've got a row in here, and we will talk about some different techniques in a minute. So first of all, that stitch has been completed, so I can slip knot it into the opposite square. And then all you do is pick up your yarn, and I'm using half trebles, by the way, so pick up your yarn and go all the way through 3. Once you've done that, you find the next hole and you slip stitch. If you can hear clip clop, that's my dog. And then you half treble again, go into the next stitch and stitch again. And as you can see, I'm anchoring by holding the one that I'm working in, and then when I come to work in the next one, I then go into holding the next granny square behind, and then when I've done that, I go back, yarn over, and I go back to it. So every time I'm anchoring where I'm working. So if I'm working in here, I'll hold it there. If I'm working in here, I'll hold it there. So into that space there, and then I'm just going to finish those. Sorted the dog out, naughty dog. And then I'm just going to work into the corner as normal, slip stitch into that corner, right? My next, as I'm working 2 half trebles into my corners, and then what would normally happen if we were just doing a square on its own, we would chain 2, and then we'd go back into the corner. But because we need to attach, I'm going to go through. Okay, so because we're going into the corner, we need to attach because we're continuing the squares up this way. So we need to make sure, like here, that it's attached. So I'm going through those 2 squares that have already joined through their corners, creating a slip stitch. I'm going to chain 1 quickly just to give me enough to go round the corner, and then now and finish off my granny square as normal. So 2 half trebles into the corner and then into each stitch head, like so, and into those chain spaces. Hang on, getting into a bit of a mess because everything is. So realign my wool. As you can see, I've just got into a bit of a muddle. making sure that I'm comfortable, taking your hook into your hand, realigning your wool in a way that is your preference. This is my preference. As we've gone through all of the videos, you can see this is how I hold my wool, but you may hold it in different ways, but this is for me the particular way that I like. And then I'm anchoring again, making sure I'm comfortable, and then then I start to maneuver as you would in a car, you know, do all your signals, and then you maneuver. Don't try to do it when you're not comfortable. The worst thing you can do when you're crocheting is trying to work when you're not in a comfortable position with things that are irritating you, i.e. the dog. Yesterday it was quad bikes while trying to record. Oh, I've gone into the same thing twice. So there is always something that can be frustrating you. Somebody's asking you a silly question. What's in the fridge? Where's the tomato sauce in the fridge? Where's the butter? And you're thinking, well, it's only one fridge. It isn't hard to find. But those kind of things can irritate you. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable, that you're settled, that you have everything you need, the cup of tea that you need to create your nice, safe, secure crochet corner. You know, have you got your scissors ready? Have you got your needle? Things that allow you to work from the space that you're in. And you're all set to go. Nothing can disturb you. As you can see here, I'm weaving around an end again, or stitching around an end that's loose. So that's one less thing to weave in. Working around again. I'm going to have to move my wool in a position that works for me, because obviously you're working with something that's a little bit larger than just a square. Because that again can affect your tension if you're not comfortable. If your work isn't in a desired position as well, for making it easy. And then just work away. And then what we'll do on the next square, I will show you how to start. So we have to bear a couple of things in mind. Obviously, the square that we're working to has an extra row that the one that we're going to be attaching doesn't, because like this one, that row doesn't happen until we start attaching it, just like the granny square on the go. So that means that the stitches will slightly line up slightly different to what your brain is going to tell you, because you're used to working into a granny square corner. Oh, do that one chain and then just work between, can you see that between those two rows? Let's just do that again so you can see it properly. So I'm not going to go into and then just pick up just there. I want it to be fully attached so it looks right. So I'm going underneath this line here, picking up the other corner on this adjacent granny square, yarn over, pull through, and then slip stitch. Okay. Well, that's it. Everybody's getting their bins out. It's fine. Thursday night. There's always something noisy going on. Unless I have a little shed to work in, in about 10 acres away from any known buildings, I don't think I'll ever get. Oops. Again, you have to realign yourself. So at the moment we're working front facing. So bringing them together and bearing in mind I've already done one row. Now the other way you could do this, there are a couple of ways you could do this. You could do the whole row and then just leave this side. So you just work like up and down and across like that, and just leave this one here in the middle and then work everything together in the middle. Lots of ways you can do it, but I'm going to do it this way. This works for me. So the one thing I have to think about is obviously again being comfortable. So let's just lift this up just slightly so you have a better view of what's happening. You can see I have the back part of my row. So this is the front part here. All the bits I've worked, and I'm going to do a lovely little border around there. This is the back side of it that I've already done in one row. This is what I've completed here, And what I need to do is have the back of that square and the back of this square facing each other like so. Okay. Then the next thing I need to do, sorry, I'm repositioning this so it's much easier for you to see, is I need to pick up my wool on this one before I attach. Just attach it with a couple of chains. There we go. And then I'm not going to work into the corner, but what I do need to work into is this stitch here, because that's the corresponding one. Because if you look, the corner the corner has already been made, so I need to work into this stitch right here through there, because that is the start of my stitches there and there. Okay, not into this chain space, into this and this here, because if I work into there, it's almost as if I'm working on the next row after this row. So for me to make this identical, I need to correspond my stitches to these stitches here, because that will then allow it to line up. You may want to repeat this part of the chapter of the video a few times. So taking my hook through there, and then just lining that up with a slip stitch. Then I can work back into this corner, making sure that my tail end is on the line of my granny square there. Can you see that? And then I can work back into my chain space on the granny square we're working. That's different. The reason why I can work into the chain space on this one is because this row is a row behind this one. This row here has already been created. We are now creating it on this one instead. So now it's slip stitch into there. So I need to slip stitch into there and then go through the next stitch head on the corresponding granny square. Let me just pull my wool out a little bit, and then hang on, I'm just working out where I am. So this is where you have to kind of look at what you're doing and go, right, what have I done? So I can see that the loop that I've just created is now pulling on that one. So it's this one I need to work on. Do my slip stitch, because that hasn't got a slip stitch in. Don't move on with your stitches here if you don't have a slip stitch there. If you think, oh, that's not attached to a slip stitch, then you know you haven't completed that method. So stitch, slip stitch, stitch, slip stitch. Okay, now I've done my slip stitch, I can go into this one, and then I can go into the corresponding stitch like so. Right, again, move your work if you need to. Right, I'm just going to double check myself there, because I've just said all that, and because I've moved my work, I'm just checking. So if you're not sure if you've got a slip stitch, you will see the slip stitch is there. Look, there's two interconnecting ones. So let's work into there again, and then we can go into the one we haven't worked with a slip stitch. I'm not very comfortable here right now, so I'm just trying to get in my flow. It does take some time. Sometimes you can get there in seconds, and then other times you're like, oh, this doesn't feel quite the way it should. It doesn't help that I'm trying to work in a very contained space, whereas when you're sitting there watching the TV or outside, you can work at your own leisure in your own little space and not in a fixed space, so that you guys can actually watch what I'm doing and actually work it out. So it is quite confining for me teaching you this. Never mind, needs must. Okay. The joys of having your windows open in summer means you get all the noises from outside, including the birds. So now I'm finding a little bit more easier. Making sure I'm in the camera and it's not looking too much. lost my. Oh, what have I done? Right. Slip stitch. So stitch. So half treble, and then slip stitch into the next stitch on the corresponding granny square. So half treble and then stitch, half treble. Sorry, say this in your head. It's much easier to do. Oh, sorry, I've come off screen because I've caught my wool. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not catching it again. Obviously, as well, make sure that when you're using your hook, which I have spoke to you about in other videos, you're using your hook to your advantage. So when you're pulling your wool through, that it's pointing out, but as you go back down, you see how mine points down. But as I pick up my yarn, my hook is facing up. But as I go down, I twist it round and I push the smooth edge through the loop, the next stitch. As I pick up again, it's facing out, but as I come through my loops, it's pointing down. So if you're finding that a little bit difficult, this is the bit I hate because I always feel like I've got too many stitches. So you'll feel the same. You'll be like, oh, why have I got so many stitches and I've got to cover? It's because you've got your corner. Every time I do it. One. Oh, go through there. Sometimes you have to place it in that corner space. So what we've got now is we've done one edge that's attached, but now we need to attach it to this edge. So this gets a little bit tricky. So again, because we've got a corner to do, I'm just going to go through those two spaces there. So the two corners diagonally opposite. I'm just going to slip stitch in there just to marry them together. And then going to have to turn my work again so it's more suitable for how I'm going to work, which is that way. Because I'm going to have to work. I have to work, obviously being right-handed, I'm working this way. I'm working anti-clockwise. So this gets a little bit tricky because you have to think about it slightly differently. In fact, scratch that. I need to turn my work inside out. So I'm working in the right direction. So front facing again now. So flip your work so you're front facing, and then you can work it naturally. I was looking at that then thinking that I have no clue what I'm doing here. Right, again, we flip our work so that we can then work in the right direction to our. So the granny square that should be near us in reality is the one we're working on, or the one we're adding that next stitch layers into. So hang on a second. Right, so now I need to find the stitch. The first stitch space is here. Create my slip stitch there, and then go into my space. And then obviously to finish that, I need to go into stitch there, and then you just start again as we've done in the previous square. Slip stitch, finish it off, and then half treble, and then slip stitch. Oh, I did a crochet wrong. Slip stitch, and then there we go. There we go. And you just continue doing that until you've got all the way around, and then obviously I've got all those squares to do. So I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares to attach. This is quite long. I have actually cut 5, 2, 3, 4. They're 11 squares, so it's about 1.10 meters in length. You can add more. To be honest, if you're doing the pockets, you probably do want to add more so you can wrap the scarf around your neck. So I'm just gonna bit more wool. Really wanted to do that. Okay. Sorry, I've just wrecked my wool. I've just pulled it up with my nail. Let me just realign that. Oh, that feels weird now. Right, okay. Ooh, don't like that. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a stitch marker so I can talk to you about some other things as well. Just add that into there so I don't lose my space. My dinner is also done. The next thing we need to think about is obviously weaving in those stitches, and I'll probably do that on a separate video for you. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I've lost my little square. Put it somewhere. I've lost my little square. Oh, here it is. So the other thing as well is that at the end of your you can make some pockets, and we can bring them together by double crochet them in as well. You can make this as big as you want, so it can cover. I need to sort all my little bits out. Is you could make it as big as this and then crochet it in, or you could do multiple ones. So you've got 4. You do 2, so it's a shallow pocket. It's entirely up to you how you do it. I will write some patterns on this for you so that you can then replicate these patterns as well. But these are just standard granny squares really, and you can then take it as far as you want. So we'll get that sorted, and we'll do another video on the weaving for you to follow that individually. That'll be just a short one.